Each week, American History TV's American Artifacts visits museums and historic places. Dedicated on March 17, 1941, the National Gallery of Art was a gift to the American people from financier Andrew Mellon, who served as Treasury Secretary from 1921 to 1932. Up next, we visit the museum to learn about early American portrait painting and the work of John Singleton Copley.
Hello, I'm Diane Stevens from the Education Department, the National Gallery of Art, and we're standing in a room full of portraits by John Singleton Copley, America's most important colonial portrait painter. And I think as we look around the room, you can think back to the words of John Adams in 1817, who said, when you see Copley's portraits, you just want to discourse with them. You want to ask them questions and receive answers. I don't think you can say it much better than that. So Copley's portraits of men show you these very substantial, realistic figures who look comfortable in their setting, and you have a sense that they've had, these two men especially, you have a sense they've had successful lives and they're in a good place. His paintings of women sometimes are just so ravishingly beautiful in their attention to fabric and texture and the beauty of the skin, like this portrait of Anne Fairchild Bowler, Mrs. Metcalf Bowler. This was painted in 1763. Look at the beauty of that fabric and the garland of flowers she's holding and the lace sleeves on her dress. You can see his training in engraving and in fine detail when you see how he's treated these fabrics. There's an interesting story to this woman. She was married to Metcalf Bowler. He was a very, very wealthy, accumulated a huge amount of wealth in the shipping industry. They had a home in Newport. He was very active in political affairs. He was a judge in Newport. They lived on Clark Street. And then in 1763, he had accumulated so much wealth that they retired to their country estate in New Hampshire, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I think there were 70 acres, 11 of which were devoted to greenhouses and gardens for flowers, and maybe that's where her garland comes from. So they were happily living on this estate in New Hampshire, but the war came along, and the British soldiers ravished his estate. His income from shipping totally stopped, and things got very hard for Metcalf. It was only discovered in the 20th century that at that point he corresponded with General Clinton, Sir Clinton, who was the British soldier and British commander of the area, and he wrote to him offering intelligence in exchange for protection from the soldiers and for some cash. This was not discovered until the 20th century, when Clinton's papers went to the Clements Library in Ann Arbor, and this correspondence was discovered. So it doesn't look like he got much assistance or much protection or much cash, because his circumstances were considerably reduced after the war. He and his wife moved to Providence, where they set up a shop. He became a shopkeeper, and they had a boarding house. So the question is, did Anne know about his traitorous activities? We don't know. But it doesn't take away from this beautiful portrait of this young, very confident, self-assured looking young woman with her beautiful garland of flowers and her beautiful lace sleeves. These paintings are primary sources. They really are. They're here for us to look at. There's no filter on them. They are just as they were painted. The only filter is what we might bring to them. But if we look carefully and try to understand them, I think they're a great source for understanding who the people were and what life was like at that time.
You can view this and all other American History TV programs at our website, cspan.org/history.